Good day, everybody. Bob Hooey from Alberta Speakers, and we're introducing you to another one of our partners on albertaspeakers.com. I'm going to introduce my friend Zaheen Nanji, who is one of the most in-demand speakers on resilience in Canada today. She shared her content-rich, entertaining, hard-hitting, and memorable presentation to enthusiastic audience such as HR, health professionals, educators, and leaders. Her compelling stories of suffering from a speech impediment personally to moving halfway across the world as a teenager without her parents and just recently surviving breast cancer has her audience laughing and tearing up at the same time, which is interesting. She's a TEDx speaker and has been featured on the front cover of Positive Health magazine and on various broadcast media outlets in the UK, USA, and Canada. She's also a two-time best-selling and award-winning author. I appreciate that. Zaheen and her husband own Shanti Wellness and Laser Center in Alberta, Canada. She calls herself a resilience champion because she shows you how to make resilience your first reflex. So welcome, Zaheen.
Thank you, Bob.
So glad you could join us and we get a chance to explore a little bit about who you are and let our viewers get to know you better, and hopefully they'll decide, hey, that's the woman I want to hire. So let me ask you just a quick question. Tell me a little bit about how you started or why you started your speaking career, because that's something I think a lot of people want to know, is how did you get started in this?
Yes, I started back in 2008, and I'd always wanted to. I knew I had a message that I wanted to share, but as you mentioned in my bio, that I had a speech impediment. So I stuttered, and I've overcome it, but it took me at least 10 years to overcome that stutter. And I grew up not wanting to talk to anyone, not wanting to speak out in groups. So imagine someone like me who wants to now be a speaker. That wasn't happening when I was younger. But as I went for speech therapy, I slowly started to practice what they were teaching me, especially the fluency skills. And I enjoyed my voice for the first time. And I enjoyed speaking to people for the first time. And at that point as well, when I gave birth to my daughter, who's now 14, someone approached me at that time to sell skincare. And I thought, it wasn't my passion to sell anything at that time, but it was a way for me to overcome my shyness about speaking in front of groups. And I thought, what a great way to do it is by selling skincare. And so I started having little get-togethers at people's houses, and I really enjoyed talking about skincare, and I liked the way I was teaching them about it. And I would get comments about how they liked the way that I spoke. And from then on, I just thought, you know what? I really have to look into doing some kind of speaking out there professionally because I enjoy it as well. And I started to teach another author's work. And from then on, I just decided that this is something I wanted to do. So I really branded myself with my own message in 2015.
That's amazing. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned stuttering. I have a longtime friend, Peter J. Daniels, who lives in Adelaide, Australia, who had that was one of his learning disabilities was a speech stuttering. Went on to be a multi-million-dollar speaker.
Wow.
And actually was very helpful to me when I first started my speaking career. In fact, he told me when I said that my dream was to travel the world speaking, he said, your dreams are too small. And I looked at him shocked, and he said, you got to dream bigger than that because you're going to run into obstacles and detours and potholes. And if you don't have a big enough dream, you're going to stop. And he was so right. So I'm so glad that you pursued that and came out to, because we need your voice. Quite simply, we need your voice. So let me ask you a quick question. What do your clients get when they actually engage you?
The one thing that I hear back from my clients is that they love the immersive learning that I offer. So even in a keynote, when I'm up there sharing my tools and the message, I get them to practice it.
Mm.
And when they practice on each other, they practice with the group, and I actually call that immersive learning, because they're immersed in it and they're going to remember it, rather than me just sharing the information and saying, okay, tool number 1, 2, 3, thank you very much, here you go. They're not going to remember that. And I keep hearing back from meeting planners how the way I teach is different than other speakers. And I hope that more and more speakers are actually doing that.
Well, hopefully. I mean, I think that's what builds our business, and people are looking for more value. They're not just like, even within the keynotes, they're not just looking for a rah-rah speaker anymore. They're looking for somebody who's got some value-added content, as well as a way of engaging the audience. And when you tell stories, as I've heard you do, because I've seen you speak, you have engaging stories that bring your audience in, and that makes a big difference. So tell me about, just because, I mean, most of us think about this, who would be the ideal client for you? If somebody's watching this, and I hope thousands and millions, maybe even millions watch this, who would be the ideal client for them to say, hey, this is the lady you should talk to?
I really enjoy speaking to health professionals. And I think it's because of my background in health that I really get what they're going through, what is involved in the health industry, cutbacks, government, working more with less, and just the mental health aspect of the job as well. And I've been there, I've done that, so I can relate to them, and my stories are more from the health background.
Mm-hmm.
So I find I can really relate, and they can relate to me as well.
Okay, well, and here in Alberta, you're going to be much needed in the next little while.
So
I'm not going to go into that, folks, but that's an inside mention.
Yeah.
If you live in Alberta, you know exactly what we're talking about. But so anyways, let me ask you another question. You've been doing this for quite a while. Share some of your success stories with us.
Right. So some of the success stories have been, so I'll tell you about one recently. I was traveling, and I went back home to visit my family in Kenya. And when I go back home to Kenya, I tend to do a few speaking gigs while I'm there. Might as
Why
well, right?
not?
Right. So I spoke at a corporate company this August, and I was asked to speak to women who had gotten into an industry that was previously dominated by males. So now female engineers were coming on. And this was a very new thing for this company, even for the females themselves that were going in. And they were having difficulty with communicating with their male counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought me in, and so I did a little workshop with them, and it was so interesting that when I worked on a lady to show this is how you do the work on each other, it was so amazing to see the physiology change in her as we walked through, as to she felt that she didn't have a voice, that she couldn't speak up. And at the end of it, like, just her shoulders were back, and she felt so confident, and she goes, I can do it. And so they kind of took me on a tour of their company. So I started off in a smaller town, and that was so good. And the feedback that I got back a week later was that she was actually turning the no into a yes. When she went up to a manager and he said no, she would question and find a way to turn that into a yes. If she needed more plans to work on, or if she was missing some information that he wanted, which in the past she would never ask those kinds of questions. Mm-hmm. So that was turning for her. And then they took me to their head office, which was in another town. And there we didn't have time to do this workshop, but I spoke to the women there as well. Well, we all had lunch together. And what I do when I'm speaking at conferences, I never just come up on stage, do my thing, and leave. I love to spend the day there, and I mix in with the delegates. I sit with them at their tables. I find out what is going on. And I like that because I find it makes my work easier.
Mm-hmm.
But I get to know so many people and I make friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same thing happened here. We all had lunch and I sat with the ladies. And the organizer that had hired me had said, that was so nice that you sat with them. I thought you would sit with me. And I said, no, I want to get to know them. And one of the ladies at that point talked to me and she said, I can't tell you how much what you said, how I look at things differently now.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I really needed to hear what you had to say. And I'm so glad that I came today. And so when those kinds of things come to you, you know that, like I do what I love and I'm making a difference and I'm helping others.
Frankly, that's the best part of this whole job.
Yes.
It is the people you meet and you get the time you spend with them, and sometimes the one-on-one feedback, or I try and do that as much as I can with my travel. I try and spend as much time as I can with the people, both before I speak and after I speak. So, because again, it's about relationships. It's
Yes.
about building relationships and helping people, and encouraging them to go for their dreams and step up and stand up and those kinds of things. So yeah, I applaud you for doing that. So let me ask you one more question. Is there a new program or a new book or something that you'd want to mention to our viewers?
Well, I've got three books actually, uh, and one of them is a really short one that I just released last year, so back in 2018 actually. And it was my book on my journey through breast cancer, but it was more about how to be resilient during that time. And it's not just for people going through breast cancer, it can be for loved ones who know someone who's going
Mm-hmm.
through breast cancer. But that's only available on Amazon. And then my main book is called The Resilience Reflex, and that was published in 2016. And it's 8 keys to be successful in life and business. So
Cool.
those are the two big books, and so my keynotes are actually based on the Resilience Reflex book.
Well, it's always nice when there's a tie-in, so that if they bring you in, they can also buy your book for everyone. And
Exactly.
occasionally I've had people do that where they've pre-ordered books for everybody who's going to be in attendance, which is just like a double bonus,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know?
One thing I've also done is because, as you know, as a speaker, we want videos, right? And if they're going to have a professional video person doing the recording,
Yeah.
I also trade books with the video. So
Well, that's a good idea.
yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. I paid a lot of money for the one I did in Paris, but I hadn't thought of saying, "Hey, can I give you a few books for that?"
Yeah.
Would have saved me about $1,000, but it was worth it in the end result. So,
Yeah.
Zaheen, I want to thank you for taking time to talk to us, and I want to invite our viewers to visit Alberta Speakers and chat with you directly about how you can help them with their teams, their programs, and events. So, anything last you'd like to say?
I just say thank you so much, Bob, for having the platform that you do. And the video is a great idea. And thank you for allowing me to show who I am and to be my authentic self here. Hey, this is the way it is. And just helping us connect with planners. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again very much.
All right. You take care.